Hey Chem Gang, just a quick video review of the stoich problems on the Unit 6 assessment. I'm going to guide you through how they were graded. So here's the first one, the stoich problem. Make sure that you use significant figures on this. You were given 100.0 grams of aluminum, and that should have been what limited your sig figs. You should have written 100.0 here. Your molar mass really should be to 5 digits, so you don't have rounding errors, although if you did it only to 4, that was okay. But your answer should have 4 digits. If you included the extra digits there and just rounded the answer to 3, I didn't immediately take off there, but if your next answer was a little weak, I might have taken off that half a point. And you definitely need the labeling with aluminum and chlorine, and you should have your grams and moles as units, as appropriate. Okay. Now, the limiting reagent problem, there was a lot of problems in completely and clearly expressing yourselves on that. So I wanted to explain various ways where you could have done that. And think back to how I graded that daily assignment. A lot of you really didn't pay attention to my request to explain things more clearly. So a lot of you lost a half a point here, maybe even a whole point, depending on how clear your answers were. It was not actually required to do a calculation here because the numbers were so easy. We probably should have given you harder numbers. But here's the important thing. You've got the stoichiometric equation here, which shows a 2-to-3 ratio. And you were given 3 moles of copper chloride and 3 moles of aluminum. So there were sort of 2 slightly different approaches that you could have used to just explain this in words. And one of them would be very simple. This says that if you have 3 moles of copper chloride, which you do, you need 2 moles of aluminum. And you have more than that. That makes aluminum the excess reagent. You can see there's 1 extra mole of aluminum. So that's one way you could have done it. Another way to look at this, it's a way that I didn't teach yet, but it's a way I do like if you're just trying to show the limiting reagent and the numbers are easy, is you can think about how many sort of recipes you're making or how many times you can do the reaction. So with 3 moles of copper chloride, you can do the reaction once because it requires 3 moles of copper chloride. But with 3 moles of aluminum, you can do the reaction 1.5 times because you have more aluminum than is needed for the reaction. So again, that indicates that aluminum is your excess reagent. All right. If you're doing calculations, this is the one that gave a lot of people trouble. Okay? Because a lot of people put both of these calculations here without these words and lost some points. Because some of you had both of these calculations there and had just completely the wrong words. So if you just show the calculations and don't explain it, or don't explain it in the proper words, you don't get full credit. So the way these work is you're taking an amount of one of the reacting chemicals that you have. And please note, when you're doing these limiting reagent problems, you have to deal only with the reagents. You're talking about aluminum and copper chloride. Those are your only answers. And some of you might have made a silly mistake and said copper instead of copper chloride, but that cost you on the exam, unless your intent was very clear, because some people definitely did calculations of how much copper was needed. And I should go back to this one here. Copper is a product, it's not a reactant, so it can't be a limiting reagent. So if you talked at all about how much copper was needed, you got a point off on your explanation. So what this is calculating is how much copper chloride is needed to react with all the aluminum that you're given. And it's 4.5 moles. And many of you kind of went from there to say, therefore, copper chloride is limiting. But you didn't connect it. You didn't say why. And the why is that you only have 3 moles of the copper chloride. All right? So you've got more than you need. All right? That's why it runs out. So if you didn't connect that idea there, you probably lost a half a point. All right? Or you can look at how much copper chloride you have and calculate how much aluminum is needed to react. So 3 moles of copper chloride requires 2 moles of aluminum to react. But you have 3 moles, so there is excess. Okay? The problem that I saw in a lot of your papers is you calculated this and this, and then just said, therefore, copper chloride is limiting. And I wondered if you really understood what was going on, because if you really did, you would have only done one of these calculations. And there were people, again, who did both of the calculations, but didn't say it right in words. So if you didn't make that final connection, you lost generally a half a point if you had these here. One last comment. There were some people that calculated amounts of product, and I'm not going to actually show that out, but you could calculate either the amount of aluminum chloride made from 3 moles of this and 3 moles of this, or the amount of copper made from 3 moles of this and 3 moles of this. And the limiting reagent is the one that produces the least. Again, you have to use the word to explain that. Some of you did the calculations and just pointed to the limiting reagent, but without the words there, you probably lost half a point. So remember, explain your work clearly, use the proper words, and if you have any additional questions, let me know.